Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you.
Welcome everyone again to this All Souls Sunday service, take 2. So as we all know, tech issues happened this time. It looks like somebody was logged onto our congregation's account and accidentally started another meeting, I'm assuming by clicking a wrong link, which is such an easy thing to do. So here we are all now again. It's so good to see your faces this morning. I am the Reverend Caitlin Cotter-Coilberg, minister of this congregation, and I am joined for this service by Worship Associate Carol, Tech Gurus Neil and Matt, and of course our music director, Hannah. We are so glad that you are with us today. In the words of Susan Brown, welcome all you saints. Yes, you are saints, all of you saints, for it is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our actions. It is not by perfection we are sainted, rather it is by our presence. It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our giving. It is not by our perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our gathering together in love, with love, to become a nurturing, welcoming community. And so we gather online today. Welcome all you saints. And as we gather on this All Saints, All Souls Day, we call into our minds and hearts all those saints, all of the great cloud of witnesses who modeled for us, who blessed our lives, those caregiving and mentoring saints who loved us into our best selves and modeled for us how to live. Those saints of friendship and partnership who laughed and cried with us through the ups and downs of our days and years. Those saints who worked alongside us in our professions and our communities, who showed us what it means to strive towards our dreams and goals and higher aspirations. Those saints of our wider global community who inspired us with their actions, their integrity, their courage, and commitment to ideas and ideals of justice, equity, and equality. For these saints, we give thanks. As we give thanks for the threads that connect us to those who have come before, we give thanks for the legacy of love that continues to reverberate throughout our lives. Welcome all to our All Souls Annual Remembrance Service. Before we get started, a few things of note. First, as you are all so aware, I am sure, Tuesday is Election Day, and we know that's going to be a tough day for many folks. So a group of Unitarian Universalist ministers from all across the country, organized by a couple of my seminary classmates, have put together a spiritual practices group for that day. So it's drop in. You can drop in and out at any time. It'll be both on Zoom and on Facebook Live. They've got a Facebook event set up for that, and it'll be going from 10 a.m. Eastern until 10 p.m. Eastern. I'll be on at 1:15, but there'll be a minister there all day, so you can drop in and be present with Unitarian Universalists all over the country on Election Day. And then there will be things after that as well. On a fun note, our t-shirt sale is live. Our UU t-shirts, based on this gorgeous wall hanging, are now for sale, so you can order those. through that, and that link should be both on our Facebook page and the emails you've been getting this week, and we'll be doing that. I'm asking that you get all those orders in by November 19th, and then this amazing t-shirt shop with a great mission and vision that was started by UU minister down in Knoxville is going to print those up for us. And youth sizes are available. Also, of course, this month is the holiday of Thanksgiving, Thanksgrieving. We want you to know that we, of course, are not going to be able to hold the usual potluck we have, but we will have something on Thanksgiving morning for folks at 11 o'clock on Thanksgiving morning. There will be a time to gather. Carol's organizing this beautiful little event. I'm looking at some of the folks I know involved in that. It's going to be a beautiful thing. And then on the next day, National Get Outside Day, I believe there's a socially distant hike organized. And then on Sunday, we're going to do a drive-through service. So we're still going to do our breaking of the bread ritual this year. We're going to do it as a drive-through Sunday service, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So, dear ones, this is the time in the service when I invite you to be going around and gathering things as we move into the time, right? So we're going to be, we've moved our generosity ask to the beginning of the service. And Neil, can you pop that slide up for me? There, beautiful. So you can grab your phone, your PayPal app, give through PayPal or our website. Grab your checkbook as you're going around. And as you're looking around, I want to invite you also to grab a candle. We've started a new practice of lighting a candle during our time of chalice lighting. And you may want to have a couple of candles. You may want to light a candle for your beloved dead. We're also going to be building a shared altar with things from your home later. So if you want to start thinking about what you want to grab for that. And I'm going to invite you later in the service to have a piece of string ready. I realize you can't see me, so we're looking at the slide, but if you can find, there's a piece of string in the Sunday service bag, if you have that, or if you have a piece of string lying around the house. So dear ones, please support the ongoing work of our congregation and of our community partners and the Unitarian Universalist organizations we support in the wider world. This month, our Share the Plate recipient is the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, the UUSC. The UUSC is a nonprofit, non-sectarian organization advancing human rights together with an international community of grassroots partners and advocates. As you can imagine, they are doing incredible work right now in communities affected by our global crises, and our generosity does a long way to further their mission of advancing human rights and social justice around the world, partnering with those who confront unjust power structures and mobilizing to challenge oppressive policies. Their work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity, and they have long done amazing work with integrity and compassion and humility. So of course, that I grabbed from their website, but I'll say less formally, I'm really excited about the UUC for a couple of reasons. One is that one of their ministers is going to come preach to us later this month, and I'm really excited to have Laura Randall of the USC come and preach to us. Another is that I feel like on this time when we're seeing the rise of fascist violence, it's just cool to be supporting this organization that did so much against the Nazis in World War II. And, you know, the symbol of our tradition is the chalice that was developed as the symbol of UUC. It was the USC, the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II. They needed something to put on their paperwork to make it look more official in their work fighting the Nazis. And one of the people they helped rescue came up with the flaming chalice. So USC is really on my heart right now as I think about fighting fascists. And I'm very excited that they're our Share the Plate recipient for the month. I invite you to breathe with me for a minute, dear ones, as we move into the rest of the service. I know this is an anxious time for many, a scary time when we need the wisdom of those saints who came before us. And so before we move into our opening reading, I invite you to sink into the song based on the words of the late, great John Lewis, who made so much good trouble.
not get lost in a sea of despair. Never be afraid to make some noise. Stay hopeful until you die and day. We can find a way out of no way. Yeah, we can find a way out of no way. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Never be afraid to make some noise. Stay hopeful until you die and day, and we can find a way out of the way. Yes, we can find a way out of the way. We can find a way. We can find a way. We can find a way out of no way.
The Web of Life by Robert T. Weston. There is a living web that runs through us to all the universe, linking us each through all life onto the distant stars. Each knows a little corner of the world and lives as if this were his all. We no more see the further reaches of the threads that we see of the future, yet they're there. Touch but one thread, no matter which. The thoughtful eye may trace to distant lands its firm continuing strand, let loose its filaments as they reach out. But we find at last it coming back to him from whom it led, and we move in as in a fog, aware of self, but only dimly conscious of the rest. As they are close to us in sight or feeling, new objects loom up for time, fade in and out. And then sometimes as we look on unaware, the fog lifts, and there's the web in shimmering beauty, reaching past all horizons. We catch our breath and stretch out the fog again, and we go on, feeling a little foolish, doubting what we have seen. The hands were right. The web is real, and our folly is that we so soon forget.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers lovers of life and the builders of nations, we're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the birth of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
And that was Dr. Ise Barnwell doing a project she did for General Assembly this last year, with all of the singers having this moment where they shared about their beloved dead. So this is the first time in the service when I'm inviting you to switch to gallery view, if you're comfortable doing so, and wave hello to each other. Hello, hello. And I offer you the first check-in question of the day, which I wanted to start us off with a less serious question, maybe a little bit of a fun question, which is one of my colleagues has a Polish ancestry, and I've been thinking about Poland and thinking about this thing she shared with me this week, which is that in Poland, it's traditional on All Souls, All Saints Day to go to the graveyard and leave a favorite food at the grave of your beloved death. And a check-in question she offered this week is, what food would you want your descendants to be offering as your favorite food if you were taking part in a custom like that? What favorite food of yours would you want your descendants to put out for you? So I invite you to type your answer to that in the chat box as you are so moved. So we're thinking today about our beloved dead. We're thinking about our connections to them. And I think food is a particularly powerful one, isn't it? Thinking about the food that came before us, part of our heritage. You have vegan baked mac and cheese. Someone said chocolate, shepherd's pie, homemade bread. I miss eating y'all's homemade bread so much. Yeah. I'm thinking about what I would want. I like the chocolate answer, Elena. That's a good one. Corn pudding. Ooh. One of the projects we're thinking about for Thanksgiving this year is sharing our recipes. We miss each other's potluck foods, right? A James Grieve apple and a cup of darling tea. Cheese fries. It is a tough question, Billy. I agree, right? Blackberry pie. Ooh. Pistachio baklava. I love this time of year can be a time of grieving, a time when we're thinking about death and our beloved dead, and also a time of sweetness. I know I did a socially distanced trick-or-treating yesterday, and I hope y'all have had some sweetness this weekend as well. So I hope y'all have your candles ready now. And Carol, I'm going to invite you to do our chalice lighting words.
Take a breath, take a minute, feel your feelings. Then get back in the fight. The fight is harder but the fight is the same, and it needs you. It needs me, and it needs us. The stakes could not be higher, and the world we hope for doesn't happen if we don't make it. We fight the fights that need fighting, not just the fights we're sure we can win. We do what needs doing, and we make a way out of no way. We get miracles by each other's miracles, by being each other's miracles. And we get chances by making chances. We get hope by doing the work of hope. That's Reverend Elena Ross Vera. When the court is stacked against us, growing colder and more indifferent, this chalice is glowing with warmth like it always is. This is not a long prayer, because the chalice is only a thawing station. Our faith is in flight, and we soften next to the flame that melts fear. This isn't the kind of candle that we let burn down. We save the wax, conserve the wick, because we know we'll be back tomorrow and the next day. No, we just didn't get started, yet it's far from over. Morning has not even begun. Joy, I knew it more than once, and it still exists in us. Steady, flame, steady. Coat us in the light of possibility.
So the story I want to share with you all today is called The Invisible String by Patrice Karst. One of my favorite stories. So one night, Lisa and Jeremy, the twins, were asleep. It was calm and quiet until suddenly it began to rain really hard. Thunder rumbled until it got so loud it woke the twins up. "Mommy, Mommy!" they cried out as they ran to her. "Don't worry, you two," she said. "It's just the storm making all that noise. Go back to bed." "We want to stay close to you," said Jeremy. "We're scared." Mom said, "You know we're always together, no matter what." "But how can we be together when you're out here and we're in bed?" asked Liza. Mom held something right in front of them and said, "This is how." Rubbing their sleepy eyes, the twins came closer to see what Mom was holding. "I was about your age when my mom first told me about the invisible string." "I don't see a string," said Jeremy. "You don't need to see the invisible string. People who love each other are always connected by a very special string made of love." "But if you can't see it, how do you know it's there?" asked Liza. "Even though you can't see it with your eyes, you can feel it with your heart and know that you are always connected to everyone you love. When you're at school and you miss me, your love travels all the way along the string until I feel it tug at my heart. And when you tug it right back, we feel it in our hearts," said Jeremy. "Does Jasper the cat have an invisible string?" Liza asked. "She sure does," said Mom. "And best friends like me and Lucy?" asked Liza. "Best friends too." "How far can the string reach?" "Anywhere and everywhere," Mom said. "Would it reach me even if I were a submarine captain deep in the ocean?" asked Jeremy. "Yes," said Mom, "even there." "Or a mountain climber?" "Even there." "A dancer in France?" "Even there." "A scientist in Antarctica?" "Even there." "How about an astronaut out in space?" "Yes, even there." Then Jeremy quietly asked, "Can my string reach all the way to Uncle Brian in heaven?" "Yes, even there." "Does the string go away when you're mad at us?" "Never," said Mom. "Love is stronger than anger, and as long as love is in your heart, the string will always be there." even when you get older and can't agree about things like what movie to see, or what game to play in the back seat, or what time to go to bed. Oh, that's right, you should be in bed. And with that, they all laughed as Mom chased the twins back to their bed. Within a few minutes, they were asleep, even though the storm was still making the same loud noises outside. As they slept, they started dreaming of all the invisible strings they have, and all the strings their friends have, and their friends have, and their friends have, until everyone in the world was connected by invisible strings. And from deep inside, they could clearly see no one is ever alone. And with that, I invite you to join me in singing along to our hymn of the month, I Cannot Think of Them as Dead. I cannot think of them as dead who walk with me no more along the path of life I tread. They are but gone before. They are but gone before. And still their silent ministry within my heart has place, as when on earth they walked with me and met me face to face, and met me face to face. Their lives are made forever mine, what they to me have been has left henceforth its seal and sign engraven deep within, engraven deep within. Mine are they by an ownership, nor time nor death can free. For God has given to love to keep its own eternally, its own eternally.
Please join me in reciting the affirmation. Love is the spirit of our faith, and service is its law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace and to seek the truth in love and to help one another.
Neil, can you give us, there we go. So we're going to do a responsive reading, which is something we've not tried before. So you've been invited to unmute. So we are indeed inviting you to unmute, and we're going to try this. I'm going to say the first line, and then you're going to respond with the words in italics. So this is a new adventure for us over Zoom. These are the words by Heather K. Janules, and it's called The Sacred Thread. They once dwelled among us, the people of memory.
They who
knew us,
They
who taught us,
They
who heard
us,
They
who loved us.
They touched our lives time and again through their presence and their absence.
through familiar scents and favorite songs, through old stories and renewed sorrow.
As the earth turns and leaves fall, we reach back to renew the bonds between us.
with
Hearts and hands open, we
Hold
hold
on to love,
ever
ever stronger than death.
We reach back in gratitude and understanding. Without our time together, the pain and the joy.
We would never be
who
who we are today. we would have little to pass on ourselves.
Without fear, with thanksgiving, and with hope for all that awaits.
We remember those who have gone before. We honor the circle of life and death, and our place within the sacred bread.
Beautiful. Thank you all.
As you can see, I'm wearing something maybe a little strange. You're probably wondering why. This is Polish lace, and this was brought to me by my daughter on her return from her junior year abroad in Poland. Let's see if I can move it up a little bit. It's very beautiful. I didn't have any place to display it in my house, so I thought I'd just wear it. Anyway, onto the reflection. As our minister, Reverend, I'm just going to take it off if you don't mind. As our minister, Reverend Caitlin, has said, we're always drawing on the thread of the Transylvania Unitarians, but it's actually the Polish Unitarians who has a lot more influence on the development of Unitarian ideas in the Protestant Reformation of England and then in America. This is from the UU Adult Curriculum, The Tapestry of Faith. Anti-Trinitarianism is the theological idea that God is one, whole and complete, a unity that rejects division into three persons of the Trinity. The idea dates back to the first centuries of Christianity. And in the following centuries, isolated groups arose to challenge the doctrine and the authority of the Christian church. Arius and Servetus held anti-Trinitarian views of a Christ less than God, yet still divine. A second stream of anti-Trinitarianism held that Christ was not of lesser divinity than God, but fully human, yet still divine. This was the view of Faustus Socinus, who fled persecution in Italy and went on to inspire the founding of the Polish Brethren. Although Socinus did not seek to establish a new religious sect, the community of Socians which formed around him represent one of the first instances when the theology became embodied in an institution. About the same time, in the 16th century, the practice of lace making in Europe begun. Hence, Polish lace. That's why I brought it. It was then and still is mostly practiced by women, and the art of lace was brought to Poland by the Italian Bona Sforza, who became Queen of Poland in 1518, making beautiful lace items spread throughout Europe and even throughout Asia and Africa. And the African lace today is very unique. It's very colorful, whereas most of the other is just one color. Each culture developing their own unique style. And there was not lace making in the Americas. However, thousands of years ago, the Incas developed a system of knotted threads, think macrame, which archaeologists think constituted kind of written language. From Poland and Transylvania, anti-Trinitarian thought spread west, where it encountered similar movements in England and Holland. In the 17th and 18th centuries, leading voices for anti-Trinitarianism included people such as teacher John Biddle, the poet John Milton, philosopher John Locke, and ministers Thomas Evelyn and Theophilus Lindsay, and the scientist and minister Joseph Priestley. Today, Polish artist Nespoon has taken the threads of lace making and focused on lace motifs that cover the walls, streets, and public parks found in urban environments. The lace works are either painted directly onto the surface or formed in clay. each handmade by herself or the traditional folk artists with whom she works. It's that Nespoon is on a mission to embroider the work. Her unique brand of lace art can be found everywhere, from Poland, Italy, Netherlands, Ireland, France to Russia, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, and Saudi Arabia. Nespoon tends to use local laces from the country where she is working. And like many Unitarian Universalists, Nespoon is an activist. She uses her art to fight poverty and oppression, environmental problems, and other causes. A contemporary street artist traces the thread of her artistic roots back to the 15th century, and we can trace the thread of our faith through most of the centuries of the modern era. Blessed be.
So, dear ones, at this time, we're going to once again invite you, those of you who are on Zoom, to turn on your video, and on Facebook, and I invite you to hold up or share in the chat what object you brought to the altar today. So if you're comfortable moving into gallery view, those of you on Zoom, and if you have something you want to hold up for us to see, like I have this necklace from my grandma here. I'm also wearing some of her earrings. What do y'all have today? Does anyone have something? And you can type in the chat box, if you would, on Facebook or on Zoom, what you brought to this space today. And then we'll have more time for sharing as well after the service. So what are you bringing? It can be metaphorically. What are you bringing to our altar today? Who are you remembering? Your heart. Beautiful. Yes. Bring our hearts. I appreciate those who shared photos with me to add to our virtual altar that we just had. And I'm going to invite those of you who are on Zoom with me to show connection in a new way. In the bag of Sunday service supplies, you should have been able to find a string that looked like this. This is a piece of string from a ritual at the last in-person General Assembly. Memories of those, fountain pens, shells collected by your sister, beautiful things we bring. And I'm going to invite you, if you would, to find a piece of string. We're going to hold it up to the camera. So in addition to our altar, we're having just this moment of, you can stretch an invisible string if you would, but if you hold it, there we go, beautiful. See, if we hold it up to our thing, you see, Ruth, how it starts to like, I see some string. We can see that connection that goes between our hearts in this new way when we stretch that string camera to camera. There we go. Thank you, Carol. We are all connected, dear ones. Thank you for bringing your hearts, your shells, your grandfather's ukulele, the fountain pens, memories, pictures of grandmothers, love of gardening, magnolia seed pods from our beloved congregation's grounds. All of these things we bring to our altar today. We are not alone, none of us, in our fears and our hoping and our grieving. If you have something you want held in the heart of the congregation today as we light our candle, our COVID candle, I invite you to type it into the chat box. So we light this candle for all of those affected by COVID-19, which is all of us, and some of us more than others. I am holding in my heart, particularly this week, all those who are frightened of losing their rights after the recent unethical, hypocritical, and rushed confirmation of Judge Barrett to the Supreme Court. As I hold all of us frightened about the violence that may unfold in the coming weeks. And as we do each week, we hold in our hearts all those incarcerated by our unjust and inequitable so-called justice system. And most of all of those of all ages and genders held in concentration camps within our borders. May all find freedom, justice, and equity. And this week, on this All Souls, All Saints Sunday, I light these 5 candles in honor of our beloved dead. All of the memories they represent. And in particular, we light these 5 candles in remembrance of the members of this congregation that we have lost this week. We hold our fear and hope for this election, our hurting heart for our families, and we hold in our hearts all those who loved Jeanette Weisner, Elaine Oliver, Jack Hickok, Helen Basham, and Otis DeWinter. We miss them. We love them. And at this time, I invite you into the spirit of prayer or meditation. Invite you to breathe into this space we hold virtually together across the spaces between us. Invite you to perhaps settle your feet on the floor or your hands in your lap, to let your shoulders relax as much as you are able. And I offer you this prayer by my colleague, Jude Geiger. Spirit of life, God of many names, source of love, as the wheel of the year turns through another season, with the chill in the air growing stronger, we pause to remember those we have lost in our lives. We remember the small moments that stand out amidst our great stories, the breakfasts that were unnoticed at the time, but take on so much more now, the laughter, the hope, the dreams. May our loss turn in our hearts into something different. May we find a profound joy in the gift of knowing those we have loved, and may it teach us to cherish those around us even more. May our remembering of the lives we have known teach us to live fully into the lives we still live, deepen our ties to the community we are surrounded by, to the family of our birth or the families of our choosing. For our stories continue on. The world needs our loving all the more in the seasons of cold winds and long nights, remembering that the wheel continues to turn, and the warmth we once knew will return anew again and again. Mother of Grace, in this election season, we pause before the weight of the fear and trepidation for a nation that has lost its way. Many fear that regardless of the outcome, there will be those who are emboldened to violence. May your peace hold our nation as we wrestle with learning who we are, even knowing that many of us among us have known this truth for 400 years. For those exhausted, may we share our strength. For those fearful, may they know the love of community. For those without hope, remind them that the story is not yet over. And we have each of us to help to turn the page to another day. We reach together to the mysterious thread that connects us one to the other and to the universe. We reach to the deep wisdom at the center of our beings, for the wisdom of the imperfect yearning reaching saints who came before us. May we embody the best of all they were with resilience, creativity, and courage. Blessings on your grieving, dear ones, on all the feelings you may be feeling today. And I invite you to join me in a moment of silence as we breathe once more into our connection to each other, our commitment to creating a better world together, our shared compassion and courage. Please join me in the quiet for a moment. And please join me now in singing along to our meditative hymn once again.
Why still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In dark and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing, calming my singing. Voice still and small, deep inside all, I hear you call, singing. In storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still you remain, singing. Calming my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, singing.
This week, I came across these words from my late mentor, Shelley Jackson Denham. She wrote in 1987, "Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then, when life is done for me, let love be my legacy." Let love be my legacy. It's a beautiful sentiment, right? It makes me think about all of the legacies of love that live on in my life and in the life of those I loved. And it makes me think about how Shelley lived her life. She was a woman who understood love in part as a deep commitment to nonviolence and justice building, to peace in the fiercest, most creative sense, the sense of positive peace, which is not the absence of violence, but the presence of justice, right? This commitment extended even into her use of language. And I still use some of her little sayings, like instead of killing two birds with one stone, she'd say, feeding two birds with one hand. And she was really committed to failing forward, to acknowledging her mistakes gracefully and with humor. So one of my favorite of her sayings was, "For a vegetarian, I sure eat a lot of foot." You might hear me quote that to you sometime if you tell me that I said something that missed the mark or did something. It's a good thing for me to remember. As a vegetarian, I sure eat a lot of foot. It reminds me that being our best selves, striving to live into our best selves, isn't about being perfect. We don't have to be perfect, don't have to be perfectly brave, perfectly calm, perfectly independent, perfectly anything. Nothing we do will be perfect. There are no perfect, simple solutions. We do what we can anyway. In the work for a better world, we need many different tactics, many people working towards our shared goal in different ways, doing different things. One of my friends and colleagues this week shared a story from the Norwegian resistance during World War II. The Nazis had invaded and taken over the country. And while there were Nazi collaborators, as there were everywhere, many, many Norwegians were anti-fascists, Antifa, if you would. And while there's lots of stories about brave Norwegians. I knew I grew up with some like children's chapter books about some of the stories from the Norwegian resistance. There all these dramatic things that people were doing. There were also these small actions that made it clear to the Nazi invaders again and again that they were not welcome. The story my colleague shared was about the trains. It became a thing in the trains of Norway that whenever a Nazi sat down next to someone on the train, that person would stand up and move to another seat. And the Nazis hated that, right? So they passed a law making it illegal to stand up and move away if a Nazi sat down next to you on the train. So people just stopped sitting down on trains. There would be these whole cars of people standing for the entire length of the voyage, because if you never sat down, a Nazi couldn't sit down next to you, right? I love that, this little act of uncomfortable resistance that was about refusing to be a collaborator, refusing to be complicit in fascism. Is that's the thing, right? You don't have to make fascists comfortable. And there will always be good trouble to make in large and small ways. As John Lewis famously said, and as was quoted in that song at the beginning of our service, do not get lost in a sea of despair. Never be afraid to make some noise. Stay hopeful until your dying day We can find a way out of no way. We can find a way out of no way. Dear ones, I don't know what will happen this week or next year, but I know that we can do hard things. We have a long, long heritage of that, right? Stretching all the way back to the Unitarians of Europe and beyond, right? Way back to Poland, to Transylvania, and way, way further back than that. I know we can find a way out of no way, can lead each other forward with care, creativity, and courage. Our values are worth fighting for even on the bleakest of days and in the bleakest of circumstances. I love this from Poet of the Resistance. Aurora Levins Morales wrote this week. She wrote this post, and be patient with me. I'm gonna read the whole thing for you here. She wrote, "The Borg were wrong. Resistance is never futile. People can unite to make bad laws and policies unenforceable. We can grow through the cracks in the system. There are always cracks. Chileans in the streets led to Sunday's vote for a new constitution. The grandchildren of Chile's disappeared are dismantling Pinochet's state. I was a teenager and Roe versus Wade Chicago when the Jane Collective began providing safe and illegal abortions. We know how. So many US soldiers in Vietnam refused to obey orders that it became impossible to control troops on the ground. Disobedience can make even imperial armies falter. Bolivia suffered a right-wing coup last year whose leaders swore the indigenous flag would never again enter the halls of power, and it only took a year to overthrow them. All these fights had painful costs, but then they were less than the cost of giving up. All these fights had painful costs, but they were less than the cost of giving up. No court can stop a united, determined mass of people. That's how we got the legal wins they want to overturn. Law is an agreement. We can disobey. We can disagree. We can fill streets. We can refuse order. We can rewrite constitutions. Mother Jones said, don't mourn, organize. I say, mourn, rage, talk, think, strategize, plan, act, celebrate, repeat. A Cuban psychiatrist offered me this prescription: raise the levels of solidarity in your life. Find people who share your values. Find important work to do together and have fun doing it. Read the stories about supporters of our current administration changing their minds because of connection, because someone shared a personal story, because someone reached. Down among the roots, our stories may meet. More people share our values than share our opinions. Resistance begins with imagining the alternatives to suffering. It begins with telling stories. It begins with refusing to accept the given as a given. So my sister, the Reverend Elena Rose Vera, shared that this week, and then I reached out to the author and she gave me permission to share it with you. I really needed that message this week. So the personal level, like I studied the 20th century human rights atrocities of Chile and Argentina in undergrad, but I didn't keep up with the news from South America. I hadn't realized just how much had shifted this year. I didn't know about the things she wrote about there. It's good to remember that fascism falls, that we are in the work for a better world for the long haul, that resistance is never futile. At the beginning of the service, Carol quoted Arlene Rose's post from the day of the recent Supreme Court nomination. And Rose wrote, I'm going to just read this for you again, part of it. The fight is harder, but the fight is the same, and it needs you, and it needs me, and it needs us. The stakes could not be higher, and the world we hope for doesn't happen if we don't make it. We fight the fights that need fighting, not just the fights we're sure we can win. We do what needs doing, and we make a way out of no way. We get miracles by being each other's miracles. We get chances by making chances. We get hope by doing the work of hope. We get hope by doing the work of hope. I certainly see my sister doing that a lot. She runs Trans Lifeline, which is saving the lives of transgender people every day. And we know how much transgender lives are under threat right now, that this is often how fascism moves in. First, you threaten the lives of our transgender beloveds, and then you start moving against other folks. Transgender Day of Remembrance is this month. And already this year, more transgender people have been killed than any year since we started marking that. So when Reverend Elena Rose Vera talks about hope as a verb, I feel it in a little different way, not just because she's my sister, but because of the work that she does. Showing up for each other is a part of being human in the best sense of this word. It's how we make miracles for each other, by being each other's miracles. It's how we remember we were in it for the long haul. I keep thinking about that quote of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was paraphrasing the Unitarian preacher Theodore Parker. You know that quote, right? Our last president had it woven into the carpet of his Oval Office. The arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Some days I don't know that I believe that. So many bad things have happened and are happening. A better world is not a set future. But the thing is that it is possible. A better world is possible. If we dream it, if we lean into the teachings, the resilience, the wisdom of our connections to each other and those who came before us, if we refuse to be compliant, complacent, or complicit with injustice and inequity, if we practice hope and lend each other courage, as we are not alone in the fight, dear ones. Our hearts are strung together with 1,000, a million, a billion other hearts the world around. Our lives are strung together by untold numbers of invisible strings. I don't know what legacy we will leave, beloveds. I know it can be a legacy of love, for we are living out so many legacies of love. Fierce, determined, creative, joyful love. We do this work not for ourselves alone, but for those whose hearts and lives are strung together with ours. We do this work in our blessed imperfection, knowing we will not always win, but that we can make a way out of no way. Knowing that the small actions add up, that our commitment to our values and principles matter, that resistance is never futile, that we are enough and we can do hard things. In the end, we do the work of love, the work of resistance to injustice, because we are not our own. We are the dreams of our ancestors and the dreamers of future generations. We do the work of love because we are not our own, because we have legacies to live and legacies to leave. Please join me in singing along to our final hymn, which is number 317 in our hymnal, our big hymnal, Singing the Living Tradition.
We are not alone, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
So, dear ones, as you go into this week, I invite you to remember the invisible strings connecting your hearts to so many hearts. Remember that you are enough and you are not alone, that it matters what you do, that resistance is not futile. Go out there and vote, dear ones, if you haven't already. Go out there and do what you can do in this world to resist fascism, to be on the side of love and not hate, supporting those doing the good work, doing the work itself, or just making evil uncomfortable. You are enough, dear ones, and you are not alone. Whatever comes this week and the weeks after, we can do hard things. We can make more love in the world. We can leave legacies of love. So that concludes our service today. Thank you for being patient with us since we had some tech kerfluffles at the end. I'm so glad that you are with us today. Yes, so glad for those who are with us for the first time. Christian, welcome. So glad for those who are showing up again. So glad for those of you who are with us week to week. So glad for all of you. At this time, I'm going to close out our live stream on Facebook as we move into our Zoom coffee hour. And the question I'm going to invite us to consider is, who are we remembering today? And what in your home, what in your life reminds you of the legacy that you are living into, of those you love and have lost?